Mariupol was the site of an important military operation that was carried out by the Air Force of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Both the Russian invaders' ammunition depot and their military headquarters were destroyed in rapid succession. There were a dozen detonations in Mariupol. The Russian aircraft lifted off in the city of Mariupol, where fighting is still going on. Residents reported hearing the sound of aircraft last night. These aircraft belonged to the Russian force that was currently invading RT. The Ukrainian military, which was on high alert to protect its territory at all hours of the day and night, was the first to notice the planes taking off in the late night hours. Despite this, the aircraft that were supposed to launch an assault on the city of Mariupol did not take off because the Ukrainian Air Force, which took action as soon as the plane took off, was unable to detect any other aircraft to pursue in the skies over Mariupol. They were unsuccessful in there. Nevertheless, there was a much more significant issue that the Air Force discovered. The location of the discovered place was the military station and ammunition depot from which the invaders took off in their aircraft. A flight at a late hour during the night could have caused significant harm to the Russian attackers, a significant setback for the Russian forces. An ammunition storage facility was found by the Ukrainian Air Force close to the Mariupol airfield. On that same night, not only was a military base attacked, but also the IH steel and iron factory, which the invaders had momentarily used as a base of operations. First, the Air Force used their missile and artillery systems to detonate a bomb at the attackers' ammunition storage. The fire and explosions grew much worse as a result of the ammunition that was stored in the warehouse. Mariupol, a significant port city, was the location of one of the most significant ammunition depots that the Russian force was unable to protect. The military of Ukraine is showing signs of improvement. The conflict in Ukraine resembles a game of chess in its complex. Both teams play the moves they are most confident in, but the outcome of the game can be altered by certain movements. The Russian army, which made significant headway in the early months of the conflict, is now unable to accomplish significant victories. The Ukrainian army has been able to recover from the initial shock of the war and is currently enjoying significant success against the Russian army with the assistance of the states that are aligned. Russia has lost 3,363 tanks, 6,660 armored vehicles, 2,363 artillery systems, 453 multiple rocket launchers, 221 air defense systems, 293 warplanes, 284 helicopters, 233 tactical UAVs, 18 ships, and 199 special pieces of military equipment. According to assertions made a month ago, captured Russian soldiers told the truth. Confessions made by soldiers who have been captured or who have surrendered are a significant element that can alter the overall direction. Confessions shed light on the enemy's battle strategies as well as the realities they have been concealing since the beginning of the conflict. The Ukrainian army has been successful in its activities, resulting in the capture of thousands of Russian invaders. On the other hand, the Ukrainian army accepted the surrender of thousands of fighters who did not wish to continue fighting. The truth about the Russian invasion was exposed through the confessions of each individual soldier. The statements made by 2 Russian soldiers who were kidnapped by the Ukrainian army over the past few days exploded all over the agenda like a bomb. Let's sit down together and go over the confessions made by the Russian soldiers who were kidnapped. A recent announcement made by the Ukrainian military revealed that they had taken into custody 2 contractors working for the Wagner. These soldiers had been incarcerated at one time, but Preen, the head of the Wagner Group company, convinced their captors to let them go so they could fight in the conflict. The prisoners were tricked into believing they were being sent to the front lines to battle there, as evidenced by the confessions of the soldiers who had been captured. It was explained to the Russian prisoners that they could have their criminal records expunged and receive a monthly stipend of £2,200 if they consented to fight for a period of 6 months. On the other hand, the conditions that the prisoners who had taken part in the conflict were forced to endure were completely different. The reason for this is that the Russian forces used prisoners as can. On the front lines where the fighting was the most intense, many people lost their lives. In addition to this, the soldiers who were found guilty were led to believe that they were battling against the West rather than the Ukraine. Concerns regarding Putin's health. In the event of an unexpected health problem, you might be able to rethink or postpone all of your decision. It's possible for a regular person to behave in this manner. But what happens when the leader of a state is battling significant health issues in democratic institutions? There is a wide variety of potential solutions. It is within the vice president's purview to exercise his authority and settle pressing matters. In addition, in democratic state structures, the operation of each organization can be reliably predicted. Even in the event of an unexpected death of the chief of state, these nations will not experience a crisis in management. Despite this, it is still essential that the leader of state maintains good health because concerns about one's health can influence one's choices. People who discover that they have a relatively limited amount of time left to live, for instance, are more likely to engage in risky behavior. Or it's well known that individuals who suffer from severe psychological depression tend to make decisions in very unusual ways. But the most dangerous scenario is one that involves illnesses of the brain. People who have issues with their recollection or the functions of their brain may at times forget the decisions that they have made. Because of this, they could end up making a lot of judgments that are in direct opposition to one. One more danger is having trouble keeping one's cool under pressure when it comes to decision making. Those with neurological issues and those who struggle with their tempers may not take the repercussions into consideration. Is Russia a democratic country? There is a way to mitigate the danger posed by democratic administration. On an ongoing basis, assessments of the president's health are carried out, and the findings of these evaluations are reported publicly. In the event that an unusual issue emerges, everyone anticipates that the president will resign. Sadly, democratic principles do not permeate the political systems of all nations. One of those countries is. The problems with Putin's health in Russia have an effect on the safety and tranquility of the entire globe. There are numerous reports indicating that Putin's health difficulties are becoming increasingly severe. On the other hand, after hearing the most recent developments, everyone realized that the predicament had reached a critical stage. The action taken by President Joe Biden of the United States has elevated this matter even further to the forefront of. An unprecedented turn of events took place right as the first year of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine was about to come to a close. Joseph Biden, the President of the United States, traveled to Ukraine and had a meeting with Zelensky. During this unexpected encounter, President Biden traveled to numerous war-torn regions. Being so relaxed and at ease in Kiev was a significant accomplishment for President Biden. Putin's hidden illness, according to insiders within the CIA. Joe Biden is at ease because he is aware that Vladimir Putin will pass away in the near future. The British press has reported that Vladimir Putin suffers from Parkinson's disease as well as numerous claims regarding the sickness of the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, have been made and refuted. In the end, the British press disseminated emails regarding Putin's sickness and asserted that the Russian leader suffered from Parkinson's disease as well as cancer. The Sun distributed emails from a publication that purported to be genuine. The mails belonged to two prominent executives in Russia's Go. Supervisors are communicating with each other via email and claiming that Putin suffers from both cancer and Parkinson's disease. Biden is well aware that Putin does not have much more time remaining because of this. Biden does not consider Putin to be a danger. In Crimea, a Ukrainian banner can be seen flying. The city of Akka, which is located in Russian-occupied Crimea, has hoisted the banner of the Ukrainian nation. Insurgents in Crimea are continuing their fight against Russia's annexation of the peninsula. According to a report made by the Crimean Partisans Telegram group, the Ukrainian flag was flown in the captured territory of Akai. According to the declaration that begins, AIA is currently under temporary occupation. Statements with the phrase "Long Live Ukraine" were included in the image that was shared. The banner of Ukraine can be seen flying over Namov Square in Akai while it is draped over the Count d'Air. What is the total number of projectiles that Russia has fired at Ukraine? Since Russia invaded and occupied Ukraine a year ago, Russian occupation forces have been conducting daily bombardment raids across the country from land, sea, and air. The quantity of missiles fired by Russia at Ukraine over the course of 1 year was revealed by the Ukrainian General Staff. In a statement, the deputy head of the main operations department of the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Brigadier General Alexei Grov, said the following: Since the beginning of the large-scale invasion attempt, the Russian occupation forces have carried out approximately 5,000 missile attacks on the territory of Ukraine and have bombed them with planes approximately 3,500 times. According to what he said, Moscow launched approximately 100 seconds attacks against Ukraine. Over the course of the previous year, Russia launches anti-ship missile strikes against civilian communities. According to the Brigadier General, who stated that Russia only possesses a limited number of high-precision missiles. For this reason, the Russian army employs air-launched Kh-22 anti-ship cruise missiles, also known as the aircraft carrier killer, to destroy the homes of Ukrainians. Grov revealed that during the month of February, the Ukrainian army was successful in destroying 6 Russian warplanes, 2 helicopters, 80 cruise missiles, and 84 Sh. There are Leopard tanks in Ukraine. The Leopard main battle tanks that were shipped to Ukraine from Poland were evaluated by Alexei Reznikov, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine. Reznikov highlighted the superiority of the tanks by asking where is the route to Moscow. Poland has announced that it has begun sending the main battle tanks manufactured in Germany and committed to sending 2. While Germany has announced that it has increased the number of tanks it will send. Both of these announcements were made simultaneously. The transfer of 4 Leopard tanks to the Ukraine was disclosed by Prime Minister Matt Moki of the Polish government. Germany, which had previously stated that it would send 14 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, has now confirmed that it will send 18 of these tanks instead, which is an increase. In addition, preparations are being made in Sweden to deploy 10 Leopard tanks to Ukraine. Winner of the Penis Head Award, the Ukrainian of Russian President Vladimir Putin, has been sculpted into the form of a penis and erected in the form of a statue in the United Kingdom. The inscription on the statue, which was unveiled on the 15th of December in the community of Bellin located in the county of Worcestershire, states Penis Head of the Year. In addition, there is a carton full of eggs that people walking by can hurl at the table that has been set up next to the monument. The villagers' attention was also drawn to the statue, which had been erected by a group that claimed they were demonstrating against the war but did not reveal its eye. Eggs were reportedly thrown at the statue by a large number of individuals. According to one of the activists, another demonstrator said there was only one individual universally behaving like a penis head this year, and that person is Putin. The company has revealed that they intend to create statuettes for the structure and market them to customer. The activists have stated that they will give the money that they make from this endeavor to charitable organizations that assist migrants from Ukraine, according to the person who was in charge of organizing the group. I saw the devastation in Ukraine and many people displaced by the conflict. The statue of Putin was taken down in the month of August. A statue of Vladimir Putin, donning a red suit and sitting atop of tank, was erected in Central Park, one of the most renowned parks in New York City in the United States. James Kina, a French artist, stated that his goal in designing the sculpture that is located in the area where the children play was to bring attention to the absurdity. Another contentious monument was erected in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, in the month of May, and it was a likeness of Vladimir Putin. A figure that resembled Vladimir Putin was portrayed, holding a gun to his own mouth, and the sculpture titled, "Shoot Yourself." After approximately 8 hours, the monument was taken down despite the fact that it had been erected without the approval of the relevant authorities and had taken nearly a month to cons. The heated confrontations carry on. Moscow has been battling for months to take Bakhmut, and while the conflict has brought to light tensions between the Wagner paramilitary group and the Russian military, the Kremlin has denied that there is any kind of disagreement between the two groups. The besieged city has developed into a significant strategic and symbolic prize, and the conflict over it has become the conflict that has lasted the longest in Russia's offensive over the past year. While capturing Bakhmut would be a huge victory for Moscow, analysts say taking it would be essentially symbolic, as the city has little strategic. Over the past day and a half, Ukrainian drones have been attacking Russian fortifications in the vicinity of the city of Bakhmut. 165 Russian fighters were killed in the assault on their position. On top of that, Russian soldiers who were trying to reach the city of Bakhmut were stopped on the bridge. The Russian personnel were not extracted from the trench by snipers from the Ukrainian. After coming to the conclusion that they could not move forward, the Russian fighters withdrew. The Ukrainian Marine Corps launched an assault on the Russian strongholds from within the city of Dansk. The Marines took Russian locations around the city by moving from a defensive position into an offensive position, and then capturing those positions. Over the course of the past week, Ukraine has shifted into an offensive situ on all fronts where fighting took place. Ukrainian soldiers had a great deal of success when they assaulted the regions where the Russian army was stationed. Next news. As a result of China's refusal to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the finance ministers of the world's biggest economies were unable to come to an agreement on a concluding statement following a summit that took place in India. The Chinese capital of Beijing did not agree to approve parts of a G20 statement that condemned Russia's aggressive behavior in the strongest. According to Moscow, anti-Russian Western nations were responsible for destabilizing the G20. This comes after China published a plan to end the conflict earlier this week, which some people interpreted as favoring Russia's position in the conflict. India, which hosted this week's G20 talks in the southern city of Bengal, has released a comprehensive chair summary from In the document, India notes that there were different assessments of the situation in Ukraine, as well as on the sanctions imposed on Russia. The Chinese government has issued a declaration with 12 points. According to a footnote, 2 paragraphs that summarize the conflict were agreed to by all member countries, with the exception of Russia, and the paragraphs were taken directly from the November 2014 G20 leaders' proclamation in Bali, which condemned in the strongest terms the aggression by the Russian Federation against Ukraine. Since the incursion took place a year ago, Beijing has taken a more passive role in the diplomatic efforts surrounding the conflict. However, in the past few weeks, Beijing has ramped up these. This week, its top diplomat, Wang Yi, traveled throughout Europe, and his trip culminated with a warm greeting from Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. This week, China also published a 12-point plan for ending the conflict in Ukraine, in which it advocated for peace talks and respected the Ukrainian government's right to national sovereignty. On the other hand, the 12-point document did not expressly demand that Russia pull its forces out of Ukraine and did not criticize Russia for its invasion. As a result of the positive reaction that the Chinese document received in Russia, President Joseph Biden of the United States offered the following observation: if President Putin is praising it, how could it possibly be any good allegations of black? A senior Indian official named Aj Seth gave a press conference after the G20 meeting in which he stated that Russian and Chinese representatives did not agree to the wording on Ukraine because their mission is to deal with economic and financial problems. He continued by saying that, on the other hand, all of the other 18 countries believed that the war has implications for the global economy, and that these implications needed to be. In addition, the recent earthquake in Turkey, debt in low and middle-income countries, global tax policy, and food insecurity were all mentioned in the 17-paragraph summary of the meeting. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed regret that the activities of the G20 continue to be destabilized by the Western collective and used in an anti-Russian manner in a state. The United States, the European Union, and the G7 countries were accused of clear blackmail, and they were urged to acknowledge the objective realities of a multipolar world. On the other hand, the German Minister of Finance, Christian Lindner, stated, "This is a battle, and Russia and Vladimir Putin are to blame for this conflict. In fact, they are the only ones to." At this meeting of the G20 finance ministers, that point needs to be made crystal obvious. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in February of last year, previous gatherings of G20 members have also been fruitless in terms of producing a joint statement. On Thursday, the United Nations General Assembly in New York voted in favor of a resolution that condemns Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The vote was carried out by an overwhelming majority. 141 countries voted in favor of the motion, while 32 nations chose to abstain and 7 nations, including Russia, voted against it. Statement made by the commander of Ukraine, Zelensky, regarding Crimea. On the other hand, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has stated that his country will re-establish peace by retaking control of Crimea. On his Twitter account, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that Russia initiated the annexation process of Crimea 9 years ago. According to Vladimir Zelensky, Russian aggression began in Crimea 9 years ago. "We will bring back harmony in the world by reclaiming Crimea. This is our territory, our friends. We are going to restore the flying of the Ukrainian flag in every nook and cranny of Ukraine. Crimea will regain its independence." It is anticipated that military specialists will begin the operation in Crimea with the delivery of long-range missiles to Ukraine. The Russian military installations in Crimea are going to be destroyed by the Ukrainian army, who will do this by firing long-range missiles. After that, the covert squad that has been assembled in Crimea will begin the fire uprising. The kidnapped members of ISIS are currently being put to death by Russia by being shot. It is common knowledge that the top-secret organization communicated with the Ukrainian military and provided them with intelligence about the Russian headquarters protests from people in Germany who support. A gathering of 10,000 protesters took place in Berlin, the capital city of Germany, to voice their opposition to the demand made by the German government to cease the delivery of additional weaponry to Ukraine. The demonstration takes place after Western allies made a commitment to Kiev that they would provide more weapons in response to the occupation of Ukraine, which is now in its first year, and after it was announced that new sanctions would be implemented against. The information that at least 10,000 people participated in the demonstration was shared by the Berlin police, who had taken elaborate security measures in preparation for the event. At the call of Left Party Deputy Sarah Wagenknecht and journalist writer Alice Schwarzer, the protesters gathered in front of the historic Brandenburg Gate. They demanded that the German government not give Ukraine any more weapons and asked for a peace negotiation with. The demonstration was called for by Alice Schwarzer and Sarah Wagenknecht. "Those who want peace don't sell guns." The protesters, who carried banners that read "Negotiate, Escalate, Peace, does not sell weapons, diplomacy instead of guns, and not our war," chanted slogans against Foreign Minister Elena Bach on the grounds that she supported the supply of more weapons to Ukraine. The demonstrators also carried banners that read "Peace does not sell weapons." During his speech at the demonstration, the Member of Parliament Wagenknecht voiced his opposition to the shipment of arms to Ukraine by stating every weapon given increases the danger of world conflict. Wagenknecht has stated that the terrible suffering and deaths that are occurring in Ukraine must come to an end. He has called on both parties to negotiate. Wagen and Schwarzer, who were responsible for organizing the demonstration, started an online petition with the titled Manifesto for Peace, in which they called for an end to the supply of weapons to Ukraine, and for negotiations to be held with Russia to bring an end to the conflict. As of the 25th of February, the number of people who had signed up to take part in the autograph campaign had surpassed 650. Russia increased the pace at which it produced arms at a record level. The news that Russian troops in Ukraine were running out of missile stocks was met with ridicule by former President of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who stated that factories in his country were working day and night to meet the exponentially increasing demand for their product. In an article that he penned for the publication, National Defense Magazine, President Medvedev stated that certain factories had increased their manufacturing of weapons by tens of times in the article that was published the day before. Dmitry Medvedev said, "By the way, we also examined the enemy weapons very well, which were taken as booty and dismantled down to the last screw in our military construction offices." He went on to emphasize that Moscow is trying to gain an advantage by carefully examining the weapons that were fired by Ukraine and fell to the side under Russian control. It is laughable to listen to the reasoning of those in Kiev who are dreaming that missile manufacturing has stopped in Russia, or that missiles have been completed. They have not yet recovered from the shock, despite the fact that the evidence points in a different direction. Have wrote that we are not only increasing production, but also introducing the newest technologies and perfecting them as we literally advance. He used the phrases literally advance and introducing the latest technologies in light of the fact that Russia's forces in Ukraine were responsible for the loss of significant quantities of ammunition and thousands of armored vehicles. Russia stepped up production of its military hardware. Russia's military strength is declining at an alarming rate. The report titled 2023 Arms Balance was published by the International Institute for Strategic Studies, IISS, the week before last. In it, it was mentioned that as a result of the war in Ukraine, Russia has suffered a significant loss of military power, including the majority of its most modern equipment, who has become increasingly pointed and outspoken since the beginning of the war, has inspected several armaments factories in the country in recent weeks, and he has stated that Moscow has sufficient stockpiles of weapons and ammunition for the war with Ukraine. It was his assertion. A number of political observers believe that Vladimir Putin could one day consider the politician who is 57 years old to be a success. Putin is one of those individuals. 3 essential pieces of equipment for Ukrainian troops. The press in the United States discussed 3 significant weaponry that were instrumental in helping the Ukrainians achieve victory over Russia in combat. The following are the most significant characteristics of the Javelin HAM, Mars and Barter TB2 at the very start of the combatants on both sides were waiting for Russian armored troops to reach the capital city of Ukraine, Kiev, within the next few days. Although there has been recent discussion in the media about the possibility that Western battle tanks or Patriot air defense systems could have an impact on the outcome of the conflict, neither of these systems has yet been utilized in active combat in Ukraine. However, there are a few very important weapons that are already helping to change the course of the conflict, and one of those weapons is the Barak TB2, Strike and Forget Javelin. The Javelin is a shoulder-fired anti-tank guided missile that can be used by a single individual. The Ukrainians required a weapon that could intercept the Russians when they entered the capital city of Kiev, and they found the solution in the JAV. The ease of use of the missile is explained as follows by its manufacturer, Lockheed Martin, who developed the weapon in collaboration with Raytheon to fire the gunner positions a cursor over the designated target. After that, the Javelin command launch unit sends a signal to the missile telling it to secure, and then it launches. The Javelin is a weapon that the operator can discharge and then forget. As soon as it fires, it can run for cover while the missile makes its way to the target. According to the opinions of various experts, Javelin weapons were particularly useful in the beginning stages of the conflict because the Russians frequently worked in groups while attempting to advance into urban areas. It was possible for a Javelin operator to start firing from a structure or from behind a tree, and then vanish before the Russians could. It can travel a distance of up to 80 kilometers. The United States military describes him, our systems, whose full name is the M142 High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, as a full-spectrum combat-proven all-weather 24/7 deadly and sensitive wheel precision attack weapon system. The Hammer system's full name is the M142 High Mobility Artillery Rocket. It consists of a 5-ton truck carrying a capsule capable of launching the rocket almost simultaneously, sending explosive warheads far beyond the front lines of the battlefield, and then rapidly changing position to avoid a counterattack. The Guided Multiple Launch Rocket System (GMLRS) is a type of weapon that can be fired by HAMAs. It has a range of between 70 and 80 kilometers. It is able to shoot exceptionally accurately from a distance of approximately 10 meters away from its targets because it is equipped with GPS guidance systems. Star weapon of the war, the AK-TB2 drone because of its deployment in the conflict in Ukraine. The autonomous aerial vehicle UAV that was developed in Turkey has emerged as one of the most well-known UAVs in Specialists describe Barak TB2 drones as a type of weapon that can be acquired for a low cost, is produced using prefabricated components, and possesses lethal force during the conflict. It was observed and documented on videos that missiles, laser-guided rockets, and smart explosives carried by Barak TB2 were responsible for the destruction of Russian armored vehicles, artillery, and supply lines on multiple occasions, according to a piece written by Aaron Stein, a senior researcher at the Foreign Policy Research Institute. TB2's viral videos are an excellent example of modern warfare in the era of TikTok. Citation needed. Stein continued by saying that the Barak TB2 is not a magical firearm, but that it is good enough. It was said that the videos that were taken by Barak TB2 drones showing Russian casualties were a wonderful morale booster for Ukraine. The cellar was used as a hiding spot by Russian military. There have been millions of people all over the globe who have watched the video that was shot in the city of Bakhmut. The footage shows Ukrainian soldiers giving chase to their Russian counterparts. In the city of Bakhmut, the weary Russian soldiers entered the basement of the house, which had its entrance open, and waited there for an opportunity to attack the Ukrainian. After the Ukrainian soldiers realized that Russian soldiers were waiting for them, they placed explosives all around the house and then detonated the house itself. Despite the fact that the explosion had completely leveled the house, the Russian fighters continued to take cover underneath the rubble. In the second footage that was made public by the Ukrainian military, a swarm of Ukrainian drones can be seen taking off in the direction of the Russian convoy in order to destroy. The explosives are dropped by the drones as they fly over the convoy. As a direct consequence of the assault, a significant number of armored vehicles were rendered useless. During the assault, a significant number of Russian fighters lost their lives. I am grateful to you for your comprehension.